Feeling lost in your 20s and you feel like everyone got it together but you? Trust me, my 20s was a mess, but I learned so many lessons. And now at 36, I can share with you how to level up in your 20s so you're thriving through your money, mindset, relationships, and career. Now, first, let's talk about mindset because I believe your 20s are meant for experimentation. It's not an exam, right? You've come out of college and you're now looking to get into your career. You're starting to date, you're starting to find yourself. And I know for me in my 20s, one of the biggest things that if I was to go back, I would have done over is not getting into a relationship. I got into a relationship right after college. And as much as I enjoyed that relationship and I learned so many lessons, I feel like it didn't allow me to explore and travel and just figure things out. And you'll be shocked that sometimes even these type of commitments can actually slow you down in regards to the type of career you make. Maybe if I was in this relationship, I would have been open to flying across the country and living in California and getting into tech earlier, right? I feel like I was stuck in DC and trying to make my whole life in DC and my career instead of optimizing for what I really want and the different avenues that I want to explore. First lesson here is that you are in your 20s and your 20s is a great time to be abundant, right? Everything is flowing to you. There's so many new things that you're experimenting with. And I feel like this is not the time to lock down or commit to any specific thing because what you figure out in your 20s is how the rest of your 30s is going to be set up. And it's actually setting a foundation for the rest of your life. And in my early 20s, I was working in policy, I was working in HR, I was getting a master's. And to be honest, as much as I love my master's, I kind of feel like that was a waste of money, right? Because at the end of the day, I ended up becoming an entrepreneur. And I kind of wish I used my 20s to experiment different types of businesses, figure them out, fail, and then use those lessons in order to build a bigger business in my 30s. The mindset shift I want you to make in your 20s is that perfection is the enemy, right? Please, 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 please. Do not spend time being perfect. This is not the time, right? This is a time to fail over and over and over and over again. And the truth is the average millionaire is actually 40. And don't look to others and compare yourself to what they're doing, right? Because everyone has a different path. And remember, perfect is boring and the only thing that matters is progress. So as long as you're taking a step towards how you see yourself and how you want to thrive in your 20s, then you are on the right path. Another key thing about your mindset in your 20s is your intuition. I feel like this is the time that you need to listen to your own voice and figure out what does that look like. And I want to give you a perfect example. One of the best decisions I made in my 20s was I was running a tech company, and this was when I realized that I had the bug for entrepreneurship. And essentially, as much as I loved building this company, something in me told me it wasn't the right fit for me, right? I felt like there was something more I was supposed to do. I was supposed to step out from this. And so I'll never forget, I was actually watching YouTube and I saw a message from a pastor. And he was essentially saying that sometimes the seeds are planted in a different location and you're trying to water seeds that are right in front of you. And essentially what he was saying is that you're trying to nurture something that really wasn't meant to be nurtured. When you start to tap into your intuition, it's really going to change the game in how you show up in your 30s. Now let's talk about money because I feel like this is such an important thing. And the number one thing that I feel is so important when it comes to money is understanding your mindset with money, right? So let me give you an example. I feel that a lot of people tell themselves, I'm not good with money, right? And it's this narrative that they have drummed into their heads. But I think it's important to explore, where did you get your money lessons from? Was it from your father? Was it from your mother? Did you see money through a specific lens? Because maybe you guys didn't have money growing up as a child, right? Or maybe you had an abundance of money and your mindset is spend, spend, spend. Whatever it is, I think it's really important to understand what is your connection with money, because I personally feel it will set you up with how you start to create a wealthy mindset. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is two specific things. Number one, it's really important that if you start getting into credit cards, because a lot of times people start getting into debt in their 20s because they don't understand credit cards. So if you have not opened up a credit card, really start to understand what it means, the ramification, interest rates, really get into understanding the power of credit cards, but also understanding why it's so important to pay it off every month, etc. And I think the next thing here that I really wish I did more of is invest. I feel like so many people are risk averse and they feel like it's too complicated, but I think it's really important that you start to understand different types of investment vehicles, whether it's a 401k because you have a job, and if you have a job and they actually match it, please invest, okay? Please put money every way. It will add up in the end. Also understanding mutual funds and how that compounds over time. And again, I'm not a financial expert, so I think it's still important to do your research. And I'll add in the YouTube description places I go to learn about money. And another thing we gotta talk about, if we're talking about money, is saving, okay? Now, I do think there is a balance between saving and investing. And quite often, I feel that people oversave and don't invest enough, right? But you still need to save. You still need an emergency account at least 3 to 6 months and being able to cover your expenses. And trust me, in these turbulent times when your job is not always guaranteed, please make sure you have an emergency saving fund. And actually, there's some companies like SoFi I personally like because they actually have a way for you to create like buckets for different types of activities. So whether it's you going on vacation, whether it's that emergency fund, maybe you're saving up for a specific birthday activity and you're able to actually create specific emergency buckets in order to save for those specific activities. Now, the most important part when we talk about money in your 20s is making sure you pay attention to your credit score, okay? I don't know how else to emphasize this because I have realized in my 30s, all these things you do in your 20s, it's like a snowball and it starts to roll up and create momentum and really impact your 30s. Now, if you don't have a credit score, that's fine, right? But then educate and do the research in order to figure out what does that look like to start to build one up. And honestly, a lot of people make the mistake of opening multiple credit cards. So you don't need to do that. You can just open up one and make sure that you pay it off every month. There's a couple of books that I read in my 20s that shaped my mindset around money, and I will link it in the YouTube description as well. Now, the next section is all around relationships. And I'm not talking about just dating, but I'm also talking about friendships. And I'm going to be very honest. One thing that I wish I did in my 20s was index more in building my friendships and my network versus being in a relationship when it comes to dating, right? Because again, I think you have time. And I feel like what people often do is that they see all these other people dating and, oh, we're talking about boyfriends and girlfriends all the time, instead of using your 20s to build a foundation of friends and network that's going to be so instrumental in your 30s. Now, I think the first thing is identifying the friends you have and identifying toxic friendships. I recently created a video about a toxic friend that I had in my 20s, and it literally took me into my 30s to realize this person was toxic. But also, I feel like it's important in your 20s to build up a friendship circle for different types of things, right? Understand what it looks like to be a good friend. Understand what it looks like to show up. And sometimes it's even taking an extra step and doing some type of therapy or coaching in order to understand what are your traumas, right? What are things that you may be bringing into a friendship that is burdening someone? And I feel that you're going to really thrive and just enjoy your 20s so much more when you have a good set of friends. Okay, so let's talk about dating. And I have some interesting thoughts about dating when it comes into your 20s. And I spoke about this earlier. Now, the first thing when it comes to dating in this time period is, again, it's about experimentation. Figure out what you like. One key thing I want you to understand is that your frontal lobe does not fully form until age 25. Okay, so if you're in your early 20s specifically, you shouldn't be trying to lock down and commit to someone unless you are 100% sure and it's a full body yes that this is your person, right? That you could actually see yourself building a life with this person. And I think the other question you need to ask yourself if you get into commitment with someone in your early 20s is that you need to understand you're going to be a different person. You are going to change. Do you feel like this person can adapt and change with you? And if there's not anything else you can learn in this section right here when it comes to relationships and dating, this is the time to set your standards and your boundaries. I don't want you to accept bare minimum. Okay. I don't want you to accept, oh, he calls me every 2 weeks, or, I have to beg him to get flowers, and understand you deserve the best. You deserve creme de la creme. Now, the next section is creating healthy habits. And I feel that in today's world, everyone's like, how can I be more productive? How can I have the habits that wake me up at 5 a.m. in the morning? How can I be my healthiest self? And the one thing I want you to hear here is that it's all up to you. So, a couple of things I want to leave you here is number one, habit stacking. And one of the books that I love is Atomic Habits. It's the number one book when it talks about habits and productivity. And what I liked about it was it created a structure for how I can start to create my own healthy habits that were intuitive and natural to me. Now, the other side of great healthy habits is the mental health. And I really feel that your mental health is so important, especially because social media has proven that more and more people are struggling with their mental health. And I feel like it's because there's this comparison element, and you're constantly seeing people, living these luxurious lives, and you too want that same life, especially in your 20s. And you really need to be able to ground yourself. So these are a couple mental health habits that I feel like you can implement that are actually totally free. So number one is to simply walk outside. Walking outside is a great way to tap into your feminine energy. It's amazing to feel the sun on your skin. It's great to clear your mind and just to be one in nature. And I personally love walking. I feel like so many amazing things happen for me. It's great for your health, but also will help you clear your head and really get you to the mindset of like grounding and being a grounded person. Another thing is to get a journal and start to write and connect into it. And what I love about journals is very cheap. You can go to Target, you can buy it on Amazon, you can get it relatively cheap, but it will help you to start a practice of affirmations. And you can literally Google online journal prompts, you can Google self-care prompts, affirmation, positive mindset. They're all free. They're all over there on the internet. If you want, I can link some as well that I have used in the past. But I feel like writing into your journal and creating a path of connecting to your mind, even if it's just a few minutes in the morning, it's important. I know for me, another thing that I've added to this activity is writing 3 things I'm grateful for. And I love this because it's not really about that day when you're writing what you're grateful for. This really comes into play when you're having a crazy day. And what I love about this is that I'm able to go back to the journal and see all the things that I'm grateful for. And I'm like, you know what? I am living an amazing, abundant life. And this is just a one-day thing. And the next day, I'm going to come back even bigger and better. So starting to create those practices will really help with your mental health in your 20s. Now, a bonus here is using some type of apps to help you to connect to your mind and calm your mind, your anxiety, all the things. So I personally use Calm. There's also Headspace. These are great apps because it does a couple of things. Number one, it helps with meditation. I feel like it's so important in your 20s to start a practice of meditation, connected to your mind, really calming your mind because there's so much going on. They also have nighttime bed stories, and I personally love these things because at night, sometimes I'm just thinking too much. My mind is racing, and a good nighttime bed story will get you fast asleep. And the other thing that most of these apps have is, again, affirmation. So you can either record yourself giving specific affirmations, but you can also listen to affirmations as well. Now, let's talk about your career and purpose. And I want to emphasize on the purpose because you are going to start to understand your purpose in your 20s. So number one, I want you to understand your current job is not your purpose. Okay, so maybe your current job is a pathway to your purpose. Maybe this current job is giving you the experience and the skills you need in your purpose, but I don't want you to tie your job to your purpose. And I think another thing that's important is tying the job to your personal identity and brand. I feel like a lot of people did that, especially in tech. So many people were like, oh, I'm a Googler, I'm a Facebook person, and their whole personality was tied to their job. And then when they got laid off, what can you do? You're no longer the Facebook person. Your career is helping you with your skills and getting expertise, but your purpose may be something different. The other thing I want you to understand with your career is you may pivot. It's actually most likely going to pivot. So I was a tech recruiter and I looked at thousands of resumes, and the average time that someone stayed at a job was 2 years. And a lot of times they were consistently moving up and they're also jumping with their money bracket. So I feel like when it comes to your career, don't get tied down in a specific job. If it's not feeling right, if you're like, I want to do something different, I want to acquire a different skill set, don't be afraid to pivot. Your 20s is the best time to do that. And another key thing when it comes to your career is that it's so important that in your 20s, you learn how to negotiate. Especially if you're a woman, I know for a fact that women a lot of times are leaving a lot of money on the table because they're not negotiating. So whenever you're doing a job interview and you're at the final stage, make sure that you either ask friends who have a similar job or try to find someone who's in that position you're in and ask them for how much they're being paid. Ask the interviewer, how much is the pay band? What is the salary scale? Really start to understand what does the art of negotiating look like, because again, you're probably leaving money on your table, and if you don't negotiate for what you want, you won't get it. And earlier I was talking about creating your personal brand, and this is the time to do it. So I want you to do a couple things when it comes to this. Is number one, I want you to buy your name domain. So till this day, and I think I bought this when I was like 24, 25, I still own chikawazie.com. I have it and I will never give it away. Okay, so I want you to buy your domain name because that is where you can build your personal brand. Even it's a simple portfolio, or you can even do this for free using Wix or Canva. But I feel like it's so important that you own your own domain name so you can start to build out your personal brand. Another thing that you need to do is that I know if you're in your 20s, you're more than likely not a LinkedIn person, or your LinkedIn is kind of bare. There are so many jobs on LinkedIn. You can find your next job on LinkedIn. If you're playing around with a side hustle, this is where you can get potential clients in business. So make sure you take your LinkedIn seriously. Now, here's the truth about your 20s. It is messy, it's confusing, and you're going to be all over the place. And I want you to understand it's okay. Okay? You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it all together. Your 20s is the time to really just explore fully who you can be and how you're going to show up in your 30s and 40s. And the last section here around your career and personal branding is I also feel that your 20s is a great time to do a side hustle, right? I feel that the people who get wealthy in life have 7 streams of income, so you can start that journey right now. If you love videos like this, make sure you subscribe because that's how YouTube knows to keep recommending my content. I want you to also like and comment and tell me what you are doing in your 20s, how you plan to level up, and also let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I have a video for you called How to Become the Woman of Your Dreams. I think it's perfect adding to this video that I just did. So make sure you click over here and I'll see you in the next video.